Iran struck Israel with a massive ballistic missile attack on October 1st, 2024. And right after the attack, people started saying that Israel was going to strike back at Iran. And it's really easy to say that, but it's a lot harder to actually implement such an attack when you have to do the actual math. First, I want to show you the region. The center of Israel to the center of Iran is about 1,000 miles or 1,700 or so kilometers from Israel. So now you're kind of dealing with the tyranny of distance. Everything is a lot further away than you would like it to be logistically. This is the same problem the U.S. has to deal with if deterrence fails and we have to defend Taiwan. Now, a lot of people don't understand how big Iran actually is. So let me show you Iran on a map of the U.S. It goes from Florida all the way up to South Dakota. And here's what it looks like on top of Europe, going from Greece all the way up to Germany. Now, the Iranian nuclear program sites are spread kind of all over the country. That is a lot of targets, and there might be multiple targets at each target. Add to that the fact that Israel would normally have to fight their way in. That means not only do they have to carry ordnance for targets, they also have to destroy surface-to-air missile sites and radar installations on the way in. So if you're doing a large attack with conventional aircraft, every anti-radiation missile that you carry to deal with surface-to-air missile radar, that's one less bomb you can carry for servicing a specific industrial target. So you're also going to need to shoot down enemy fighters that have been vectored to intercept you, and make fun of Iran's F-4 Phantom all you want. It might still be a capable platform to a certain degree. So you're going to need fighters to carry air-to-air ordnance to fight any Iranian aircraft. You know, since yesterday's attack, there have been numerous articles on how Israel would respond. But here's what's interesting. They mainly talk about targets. Oh, Israel could hit this. Israel could hit that. But they don't actually talk about how Israel could do it. So let's talk about the actual mechanics of how Israel might actually do this. And you're going to realize how hard it would actually be. And at the end, I'm going to explain how Israel could actually pull it off. Now, so to start, the basic limiter on any kind of long-range operation is mid-air refueling tankers. You know how I always wear my Alcoholics Moving Cargo shirt? I'm really proud of these guys. That's because the tanker crewmen of the Air Mobility Command never get the love they deserve. And yes, you can get this t-shirt at Bunker Branding. There's also should be some patches available really soon now in Spice Brown, so you can wear them on your uniform until you get caught. Look, you can't kick ass without tanker gas. The U.S. Air Force has between 470 to 490 tankers spread across active duty Air Force Reserves, Air National Guard. Israel has 7. That's right, 7 modified 7.0 tankers that are roughly the equivalent of a U.S. KC-135 tanker. These Israeli tankers carry about 200,000 pounds of transfer load fuel. Israel also has 7 KC-130Hs that could theoretically do tanker operations by landing and doing a forward air refueling point, or FARP. But you'd have to land at an air base that has a runway long enough to accept fighters. And note that the U.S. tried to do this FARP refueling in the middle of the desert during Operation Eagle Claw in 1980, when Jimmy Carter sent special forces to try to rescue American hostages. That didn't work out so well, right? And those were helicopters. You know, finding a place for a jet fighter to land is going to be a lot harder. So you'd also have to find a friendly country to allow Israeli planes to land on their runways, and there aren't that many in the neighborhood. Maybe Jordan, maybe Saudi Arabia if they have plausible deniability. So let's look at actual possible plans. What would it actually take for Israel to strike Iran with an aircraft? Now note again, the spreadsheet I'm using for calculating air operations and tanker ops is available for free at ryanmcbeth.substack.com. Good science is reproducible. Although if you want to toss me $5, I could sure use the money. Israel keeps demonetizing my videos. I worked on this video for 12 hours. I'm essentially going to make $0. By the way, spreadsheets were actually how the Air Force used to do tanker planning before the advent of the Kessel Run project, which I actually consulted on, believe it or not. During the Global War on Terror, this position called the Gonker would actually work on an Excel spreadsheet, and another dude would be doing a whiteboard to chalk out all the missions and all the tankers that need to support them. It used to take like 8 hours, and if there was like a mistake in their calculations or whatever, they would just launch another tanker, just burn the $100,000. The software to manage this was updated by the Kessel Run project. All right, so let's start with the kind of aircraft that Israel might actually use. According to the World Air Force's 2024 handbook and other sources, Israel has about 30 F-15C and D air-to-air models, 25 F-15I strike models, 39 F-35I models, and about 102 F-16I models. Now, just because you have an airframe doesn't mean that it's ready to fly. The average U.S. Air Force readiness rate, it hovers between 70, 73%-ish. Russia is about that rate as well. That means when you go out to the flight line, only 70% of the aircraft are available to fly. The other 30% are being maintained. Jets break all the time. Some may even be in the middle of their quarterly, yearly maintenance cycles where you take the whole thing apart and x-ray the wings for cracks and upgrade to new tech and so on. So on average, if you have a squadron of 24 jets, only 16, 17 might be ready to fly. You can surge maintenance at the cost of your maintainers, who will work their butts off for you to get this done, but it's possible just for maybe a one-time mission because the maintainers are going to be exhausted, and you don't want exhausted maintainers working on jets because they will make mistakes. And I know all you Air Force guys are looking at me right now with 5 Zyn packets stuffed in your mouth and a cup of coffee going, I've been exhausted the entire time I've been here, and sometimes that is the problem. But for the most part, you should only assume that 70% or so of the aircraft in the squadron are available. Now, I know I'm going to get in the comments that the Israeli Air Force is exceptional. Their maintainers can turn around aircraft in 30 minutes. I have no doubt that's true. It's why on the spreadsheet I've listed 2 possible scenarios, one with 100% of the jets available and one with 70% of the jets available. But yearly, quarterly, weekly maintenance, it doesn't matter what country you're in, it still needs to get done. So the right number might be somewhere in between 70% and 100%. That being said, I'm going to perform this next thought exercise with 70% of the jets available. So let's start with the most geopolitically sound option for a mission. That would be to fly aircraft around the Arabian Peninsula, cutting over Yemen and Oman. This would be a round trip of roughly 6,800 miles or roughly 11,000 kilometers. This would take a flight time of about 11 and a quarter hours. And this doesn't factor in the tanking time. It takes between 5 and 15 minutes to refuel a fighter with a KC-135. Well, technically in this case we're using Israel's Boeing 707 variant. But both of those variants can only refuel one aircraft at a time with their boom system. So just on this trip, just only on this trip, it would take 213 hours to refuel every jet. That's, and that's with one tanker. You can throw more tankers at the problem, but remember, Israel only has 7. So how many tankers would Israel actually need to accomplish this goal? If Israel took the southern route, they would need 73 tankers. And the only way this would be possible is if the U.S. pumped the gas. And Joe is not going to let that happen. Now, so far, all of these scenarios haven't really been realistic. Israel probably isn't going to throw everything it has, or 70% of everything it has in Iran. But I wanted to do this to show you the complexity of the problem. It's easy to draw arrows on maps. You're going to see that a lot in the next couple of days. But it's a lot harder to actually plan the logistics for the mission. So let's do a more realistic scenario. I think a realistic scenario would be a strike on 2 Iranian nuclear facilities, with Israel flying F-35s over Jordan and the Kurdish areas of Iraq. But for the sake of the exercise, we can assume the uranium enrichment plants at Nahanz and Fardo would be good targets. They are underground, and we're going to need to get messy because of that. Most likely, Israel would use a GBU-31 2,000-pound bunker buster bomb version. The F-35 can carry 2 of these GBU-31s in its internal bay, along with 2 AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles for air-to-air self-defense. So let's say we're going to do 8 bombs per target. We're going to need a minimum of 16 F-16s to do 8 bombs per target. So 2 strike packages. Strike package A, 8 fighters, 16 bombs for Nahanz. And strike package B, 8 fighters and 16 bombs for Fordo. Now, we might want another 4 F-35s to loiter over northeastern Iraq with an air-to-air loadout to cover the strike packages as they're coming back from their strike. Those patrol aircraft will have 2 AMRAAMs and 2 Sidewinder short-range missiles. So that's the CAP, or Combat Air Patrol. These F-35s will loiter over northeastern Iraq, protecting the tankers, and they can shut the door if there's a bunch of Iranian phantoms chasing after the strike packages on their way home. So now we have a total of 20 F-35s in this package. I think we can work with this, and I think we can make it work with 5 tankers. Now, this plan would require that Jordan and Iraq are all cool with this. That might be the case in Jordan's case. And the Kurds who are in the north of Iraq, they might be cool with it as well. Now, F-35s are stealthy, so nobody might even notice them. But tankers aren't all that stealthy. So it might be an issue that Iraq might see these tankers up in the sky and go, why the heck are there 5 707s loitering above northeastern Iraq? But one problem at a time. So here's how we'd actually do the mission. 5 tankers take off from either Nevatim or Hatzor Air Base. Most likely the F-35s would take off from Nevatim Air Base. There'd also probably be a command and control aircraft in the mix as well that would orbit over Iraq. I'm just going to leave that out for now just to keep the scenario uncluttered. There's a lot of moving parts to this already. So now the strike package heads northeast. They begin refueling operations over to Tikrit, Iraq. Now it takes between 5 and 10 minutes to refuel an F-35 in midair, but that depends on how much fuel was remaining in the tank when they started the refueling process. So since most of these aircraft are at roughly a quarter of a tank, we're going to call it 7 minutes to refuel each F-35. But we have 5 tankers, so multiple tankers can refuel simultaneously. It's only going to take 28 minutes to refuel all the aircraft, and the tankers will still have 763,000 pounds of fuel as their transfer load when they're done. And plus, they can do it while continuing the mission flying northeast. Now, the refueling operation starts again at Penjwan, Iraq. They'll probably have to fly in racetrack circles at this point so they don't enter Iran before they need to. All of the planes have about 80% of their gas left, but Strike Package A has a longer trip, so Strike Package A gets to go first. It's only going to take about 2 minutes per plane to refuel. Then Strike Package B fuels up. They take about 2 minutes as well. They head to Fardo. Then the CAP refuels. They stay protecting the tankers and the path back to Israel. Strike Package A has 568 kilometers to hit the target, and then they have to fly back. So that's a total of 1,136 kilometers. They will be running on fumes when they get back. I don't even know if Israel would actually approve this mission because it's so close. They'll have about 5% of their fuel left. But they will probably burn less fuel on the return since they won't have any bombs on board, and maybe if it's safe to do so, they'll even jettison their AMRAAM missiles to reduce even more weight and squeak every possible mile of fuel out of the return trip. There and back will probably take about an hour. Then Strike Package B, they'll probably take a little under an hour. They're a little better on fuel, but Strike Package A has priority on fueling up. Note that the CAP takes fuel as needed, but since they have to stay up for an hour or so, they're probably burning as much fuel as Strike Package A, but they're probably lighter due to their air-to-air loadout. Now everybody has to get back home. That's another 1,115 kilometers. So we refuel over trouble Iraq as we enter Jordan. Now, all that being said, a strike on Iran by Israel with 20 F-35s is definitely theoretically possible. I just want to remind you of the human factor for a second here. Israel will probably launch at night to preserve operational security and minimize casualties to civilian workers at the targets. I love every single one of my Iranian fans, and there are quite a few of them, but night watchmen and any technicians on the overnight shifts at these facilities will become casualties. And that's just kind of how war goes. If Iran could stop lobbing missiles at Israel, that would be great. So please do that. Now, all of this kind of negates the other factors of the operation, like where do the planes divert to if there's a maintenance problem? How do the Israelis do search and rescue? That actually might be where the KC-130Hs come in. They could theoretically fly into Iran with Israeli CH-53K helicopters and just set up a base somewhere in the Kurdish areas and use that to launch rescue operations of any Israelis who are shot down or run out of fuel. That level of audacity would be incredible, and Israel has no shortage of audacity. But that being said, we tried that with Operation Eagle Claw, so hopefully it'll work out a little bit better for the Israelis. Also, this negates Iranian air defenses. I'm using straight lines. Planes might have to fly further out of the way to avoid surface-to-air missile radars. And I really don't know enough about where Iranian surface-to-air missile locations are. The F-35 is a great plane, but it's not totally invisible. And I also assume no air-to-air combat in this scenario. Dogfights burn a lot of gas. If Israel is lucky, Iran's Air Force will either stay on the ground or maybe they can be engaged from beyond visual range. You might want to try to add in different types of planes on the spreadsheet. For example, you might want to use the F-15 for a cap mission since it holds a heck of a lot more missiles and gas. It's escorting tankers, which aren't exactly stealthy, so you might not necessarily need a stealth fighter to protect these tankers. Also note that Israel might try to destroy Iran's oil facilities, so again, feel free to work the spreadsheet in with those numbers and distances. Two other options I want to talk about. Israel does have long-range ballistic missiles, specifically the Jericho 3, but I believe those missiles have nuclear warheads if Israel has nuclear weapons, and using nuclear warheads on an Iranian nuclear site would be nuts. If a conventional version of the Jericho 3 missile exists, and Israel hasn't said whether it does or it doesn't, theoretically those could be used in a strike. But Iran does operate the S-300 air defense system, which can be used to shoot down ballistic missiles. Whether it's going to be any good at that is in question. But they do have a lot of data from Russia, and Russia shooting down incoming Ukrainian ballistic missiles. So having ballistic missiles strike Iranian targets might be a bigger issue than you might think. Israel also might try to launch some sort of kamikaze drones or cruise missiles from Kurdish areas. I'm not sure if the warheads of those drones would be up to the task of penetrating an underground bunker. There's a reason you use a 2,000-pound penetrating bomb. So that's it. In a nutshell, the IF strike on Iranian nuclear facilities is certainly possible with their existing amount of tankers they have today, although it won't be a massive attack. Now, I could be wrong about some of this. I'd love for you to let me know what I'm wrong about in the comments below. Israel might have a few other tricks up its sleeve too, like, exploding pagers wasn't on my bingo card, right? But when it comes to whenever someone says, oh, Israel's going to strike, whatever, to paraphrase Mr. Rogers, look for the tankers, because it's the tankers that determine the scope of any response. And if you want to support the channel, get one of my Alcoholics Moving Cargo shirts from Bunker Branding, because you can't kick ass without tanker gas. Head on over to my Substack if you want that spreadsheet. And thank you so much for watching.
I think that we always say that no one really appreciates tankers as much as tankers, but I think that we do play a very vital role in the fight, and you see that when you're in Afghanistan.
The boom is the long tube piece on the back of the plane. You can lower it, maneuver it, fly it around, and in the center there's another inner tube. You can extend it, retract it, and it's crucial because it's what provides the boom operator the ability to pass fuel from the tanker to the receiver on the other end. Well, the boom operator only controls the boom from the back and flies it into position to make contact. It's the pilots up front that will hit the switches to make sure that fuel is actually flowing through the boom to the receiver aircraft.
Monitor either the autopilot, make sure that I'm ready for any type of emergency situation, and make sure that we're staying within the airspace that we were assigned. For me today, I just flew the airplane, talked to the receiver, and just made sure that we were safe.
You get nervous like your first couple of times. I was very nervous, but now it's just kind of natural. I mean, it's just what we do, and you're trained to not mess up, and you're trained to put the boom in the right spot. Oh, it feels good, especially when you're supporting a TIC, the troops in contact on the ground, and making sure that those guys come home safe.
It's a lot more visible how important we are when you're actually flying the tanker, and you see it, and you see the different types of roles, missions that you have, and how much you affect what happens with fighters and TICs and that kind of thing.
Personally, I love it. I love the adrenaline. I love being back there in control and doing what I do. You get the greatest views in the world, and views that nobody really gets to see.
To me, I love it. It's a good job, and to me, I think that a tanker has a very important role.
Oh wow, Daddy, cigarettes! If I smoke these, I'll
I'll be cool!
Hey kid, what are you doing?
Think tank!
You know kid, smoking isn't cool, but t-shirts, stickers, and hoodies from Bunker Branding sure are.
Wow! Alcoholics moving cargo! Awesome!
Intel Life, Aerosol, Live Laugh Launch for Destroyer, Trident, HIMARS, and Patriot. Think outside the bomb. Drone Suite Drone, Department of the Boat People, landmines, and even the tow missile. It would behoove you to grab one today. I better take these. Don't worry, I'll destroy them by burning. And remember, Bunker Branding is cool.
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle. Bunker Branding!